still should be alive. We have made numerous changes already, signing Breonna's law and the reforms included in our landmark settlement with Breonna's family. And when the top to bottom review of LMPD and the Sentinel event review of this case is complete, I'm sure that we'll make more changes because we must do everything we can to make sure tragedies like this never happen again. And police reform is just one aspect of the work that we need to do, because justice for Breonna Taylor must be about more than the decision that was announced earlier today by the Attorney General. Justice for Breonna also means a commitment to eliminating systemic and structural racism in our city and our country, to closing the unconscionable wealth gap in education, health, and opportunity that race so often represents. And I can tell you, just as I have been working on this, you have my solemn oath that I'm committed to continuing this work. And this work really requires all of us together to work together to create a future that doesn't repeat the mistakes of the past. That's the challenge, and it's also the opportunity that we're facing in this rare historic moment. And in this moment, a moment of pain and anger for many, I have a message to the good people of Louisville. Let's turn to each other, not on each other, in this moment of opportunity. Use your passion, your energy, and your commitment to shape the city that we all want. A city of peace, a city of justice, a city of opportunity, and a city of equity. That is a city that all Louisvillians deserve. With that, Chief Schroeder or I are happy to take any questions.
Again, I'd like to remind reporters to please put your questions in the chat area and please identify the media that you're with. Thank you. First question, Mayor, is from Steve Bittenbender from Center Square. He asks if you will call on the Attorney General to release the grand jury report. Do you believe the public needs access to that information now?
Yeah, I believe that any information that does not jeopardize either the Attorney General's case or the FBI case should now be open for the public to see, to be informed about all the facts in the case, again, that don't jeopardize or imperil any of the criminal investigations. So we call on everybody that has that information to release it.
Amina Elahi from WFPL asks, protesters have demanded that Sgt Jonathan Mattingly and Detective Miles Cosgrove also be fired. Mayor Fischer, will you fire them?
Well, if at the end of the investigation, if there's a fireable offense, certainly that would be the right thing to do. Now, there is a procedure that's outlined in state law with the Police Officers' Bill of Rights and the FOP contract that defines what that whole process looks like. So if at the end of that process, that's the case, that's the action to take, that action would be taken.
The next question is from Nick Bogle-Burrows from the New York Times, and I think this is for Chief Schroeder. Have officers arrested Mr. Hankinson? Did he turn himself in? Roughly how many people have been arrested so far in the protest, and what are most people being arrested for?
So as far as Detective Hankinson, he has not been arrested by members of the Louisville Metro Police Department. As the investigating agency, the Attorney General's office would be the one to coordinate that. I do not have that information. As far as the protest, the situation is still ongoing. Several protesters have been arrested in the area of Bardstown and Midland. That situation is currently ongoing as well. I don't have those numbers, nor do I currently have the charges that they've been arrested for, but we can get that information later.
Okay, the next question is for the mayor from Christy Schenk of Wave 3. She asks, if the officers were not found responsible for Breonna's death, why would the city settle for $12 million?
I think it's important for us to begin the healing process for the city, for all the community that we have here in the country as well. So I believe it was the right decision to make at the right time. And of course, remember, there was also police reforms that were part of that settlement so that we could have more transparency, more accountability with our police department. It's important that we have community legitimacy with trust with the police department. So that was also part of that whole process.
We have another question from Amina Elahi of WFPL. Do you agree, Mayor Fischer, do you agree with the Attorney General's findings?
Well, I support the grand jury process. Obviously, I've not been privy to look at all of the information that was part of the process, but I respect the process and where it's taking us right now. So as the information that was considered comes out in the future, we'll have the opportunity to weigh on whether or not I agree with what the resolution of the case was.
Times for Chief Schroeder. Chief, what has been the response inside the department to Sergeant Mattingly's letter sent to officers?
So Sergeant Mattingly's email, we are aware of the email and we're currently looking at the situation. It was an email sent that represents his views and not the views of the department. Each officer would have their own individual response, and I can't speak for the majority of officers on how they feel about that email.
One more question from Amina from WFPL. Some are concerned militia type groups may not be treated the same as other protesters by police. Would you describe how LMPD will approach policing the various groups?
We approach policing the various groups the same. We don't judge groups by their political beliefs, by what side of the political spectrum they're on. How we judge it is exclusively on the behavior they demonstrate. We judge and act upon the behavior we observe, not from whatever political stance a group may take.
Okay, thank you. There are no other questions.
This afternoon, obviously a big day for our city and the nation. Just want to remind everybody, our country has been here before, some 50 plus years ago. There have been protests before. There have been cries for racial justice before, because racism has haunted our nation since its founding days. Unless all of us commit to ending racism, we will be here again. But our history is not our destiny. And while we have much work to do, this is also a time, I believe, of great hope for our city and our country. I'm convinced that this movement that's shaking our city and our country will lead to a better tomorrow. And that's the work ahead of us. Let's seize this opportunity. I understand it's not easy for everybody to do this, but when we're able to look back on this day and on this time in our history, we need to be able to say we responded to this call for more equity, to finally work on ending structural systemic racism in our country. It's our opportunity to seize that now. We have our full commitment here in the city of Louisville to do that. Thank you.